house where the Amityville Horror took place is the most famous haunted house in America. And more things have happened there than any other haunted house in the United States. And so what we want to do is tell the true story of what has happened in that house and the horrifying things the family had to endure when they moved in there.
I believe that houses definitely have residual energy in them. In a case such as the Amityville house, I think that having 6 murders take place there quite brutally, I think that there was a profound amount of malevolent and dark energy that was still lingering in the house when George and Kathy Lutz and family moved in there. So I think that they were driven out by this malevolent energy, and that was our opportunity to showcase that in the movie.
Before doing this movie, I believe that there's a lot of truth in what the Lutzes went through. And afterwards, my opinion stays the same. I was just playing a role. I never got too involved in the supernatural in the house that we were filming in. My opinion stays the same, and that is, if they said it happened, I believe it happened.
The thing about ghost stories is they're perennial things, and I don't think you have to believe in them to get the value from them. Modern horror films function more as roller coasters than as explorations of the supernatural.
I remember being terrified reading that book as a kid.
It's been said that a horror film is only as good as its monster. You know, the Amityville house is one of the most recognizable monsters in all of horror films.
One day, Drew just kind of came into my office because Drew grew up in Long Island and in a very dramatic fashion had the DVD of the Amityville Horror and kind of threw it down on my desk and said, this is the next movie that we have to make. It had all the things that we look for in a film.
The best ghost stories ever written have really dealt with madness, the descent into madness, and they succeeded more because of that depiction than depictions of ghosts and monsters.
Whoa. Nice.
I never thought I was shooting a horror movie when I was doing this. I mean, Andrew Douglas and I had this sort of pact at the beginning that I would play the drama and he would shoot the horror movie, and he would take care of that. And because I don't know what that means if you say you're possessed in this moment or you're experiencing some sort of supernatural phenomenon. As an actor, I can't play that. So what I can show you is a person disassembling and having a psychological unraveling throughout the course of the movie. So that I can find.
I think she misses her daddy.
Give me back my daughter.
There are lots of boo scares, which are, frankly, a sound sting and a cut. And that's fine, but what I was interested in was scares that just kept on denying you. You know, they kept on holding off from the gratification, and then relaxed you, and then delivered a scare in the most unusual place.
It's a horror film, but it's about these characters. It's character-driven horror film. It's not about a slasher movie. And that's what I love about this movie. And okay, we show a lot more gore than the original, but it got me. I was scared, actually, in a couple of parts.
I mean, I'd like to think that the thing that is sustaining this film is actually that the actors are taking it out of just being a horror film into something you actually care about.
It's the key, trying to find actors or actresses that are just ready to make that break into bigger movies.
You know, I definitely wanted George to be as physically imposing as possible.
Get out of here, Jess! Ryan!
I just want him to be a big sort of simian in nature, you know, this sort of house of a man that just, you know, the juxtaposition between he and these children was just immense as I could make it. So I wanted that to happen. I wanted him to look like he could walk through a wall if he had to and to get what he wanted.
There are certainly a few points with all our chase stuff in the house where Ryan can get pretty scary. Just because, you know, this guy chasing you with a gun, and you know the gun's rubber, and you know Ryan's not really going to hurt you, but it's still scary because he really sells it.
All right, hands. Jesse! Ryan!
all the kids in the movie, I really just, I kept it at arm's length the whole movie. I never really spent any time with those guys, and the reason was I didn't want to get close to them. I didn't want to fall in love with them. It just made my job harder.
And the kids were probably like, why doesn't he like me? And I realized that it's all very important for Ryan's craft was to really not get too close to them, because then when he has to abuse them, you don't want the kids to say, well, he was so nice before.
George, look what I found! Ryan, he hangs out with me a little bit because he's like, if I'm at work, he's already done with work, and when I'm at work, after that, he's at work, and sometimes we're like at the same time, and we barely see him.
And it's really difficult to be angry and abusive with children. As Ryan Reynolds, I was, mortified that I had to do that. But, I mean, I remember we were doing one in particular scene with Jesse James, and I was incredibly violent physically and emotionally with him. And they called cut, and I looked up and I noticed that the script supervisor and another crew member were crying, and I remember just thinking, wow, I mean, this triggers so much in some people.
Listen to me, I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm not gonna hurt you. You put your hands on it right now, okay? We're friends, we're having fun. Put your hands on it.
That's good.
How do you sustain an implausible haunted house film for an hour and a half? And the only way you can do it is through the characterization. So Melissa had to do lots of things. She had to be a plausible mum. She had to be somebody who was so desperate to have this family that she would deny the very things in front of her face. And it was that layer of denial that she brought to the role.
To get the real tears and to get that sort of stressed look and the nose running and like that, that you put yourself through a lot for that. So there's a bit of method, a lot of substitution. Just read about this man. Catch him. If I can't relate in a certain moment, I will substitute something that's similar that I've been through in my life, so I can sort of put it in context to how it could feel.
A day or two before we started rehearsing, Melissa took Jimmy and Chloe to Six Flags.
We went to Six Flags because they wanted us to bond. And when we went on this wet ride, once it got all wet, we all got all wet. It felt like she was my mom, really, because she was always really nice to me on set, too.
The toughest part for me in writing this movie was creating a character out of the little DeFeo girl who died. In the original Amityville Horror, that character doesn't exist. In those versions, there's a ghost by the name of Jody, and Jody is actually this sort of demonic pig. I presented this idea to my producers, and we all sort of agreed that instead of having a Jody the pig character, we would have a character, and that character was the youngest girl. And we changed her name to Jody because it really, as a way of somewhat fictionalizing that character and that part of the story.
Once they get here, what we'll do is we'll finish that up, and then we'll do your neck later once you get your wardrobe, okay? Deal.
Jake has to, put veins, and I know my colors. What's that?
It's a ghost, just like you. It's Jody's ghost.
I slept in the chair for like an hour and a half while he was putting the makeup on.
And then they have snowman.
When I first saw the back of my head, I was like, what is that?
You want to show them the back of your head?
Theirs is pretty good. That's what your friends are. Yeah, no,
Push.
That seems great, but I know they checked out the treats and know you.
I was like, ooh, that's cool. You did a great job.
There we go. Jody's here.
The makeup on this movie has been amazing, the special effects makeup. It's really brilliant, and it's very scary, and especially when you involve little kids. Little kids can be extraordinarily demonic. If you put them in the right makeup, in the right situation, they can be really scary.
Look, Ronnie.
One of the most effective scenes in the original film was a scene that wasn't even in Anson's book. It was something that Sandra Stern created. That was a scene in which there was a babysitter who was sitting for the Letts children. And she was this sort of homely babysitter wearing a really hideous retainer. My idea for remaking that scene initially involved an equally homely babysitter, someone who looked very bookish. And I wrote that. And I showed it to the producers, and they said, "Are you out of your fucking mind?" They said, "This is an opportunity to have a smoking babysitter, you know? This is an opportunity to bring in someone who is the embodiment of every young kid's fantasy," and they were totally right, you know?
Sure, you don't want a babysitter?
Lisa had babysat for the DeFeos. She almost took the job, not because she wants to babysit, because that's obviously not something that she really enjoys doing, but she took the job to get back into the house.
Oh, you were way too young to hear this, so cover your ears.
She scares the kids. She's not a good babysitter. She's dying to tell the kids this story.
Don't listen. A rifle. Bang! 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 Bang!
Jody says you're a bad babysitter.
Yeah? Well, Jody's dead.
Is not.
That little shit got me fired.
Initially, they had made a rubber door that I was going to be able to use so that I could pound the heck out of it and be completely unfazed, not wounded at all. Well, of course, we got here and the rubber door didn't look real.
Don't, that's Jody's room.
Shh. That's not Jody's room, Kenny.
You're going to make her mad.
So we just went to town. I just went to town on the regular wood door and suffered some swelling and some bruising, but other than that, it was definitely worth it.
Come on, open the door! I can't. Let me out! Help me! Let me out!
Look, there's times with stunts that you don't feel safe, but on this film we had, you know, Kenny, who's a great stunt guy. I mean, he's probably the #1 in the world, and anything he says, you know that if he says this is safe, you know you can trust Kenny. And I felt very safe in his hands, and so did Chloe. He got her up on that roof.
Kenny Bates is my stunt coordinator I've worked with for many years, and I've done a lot of stunts in my life, and I actually personally climbed up on that roof, and I'm scaling it. I mean, it is that steep, okay?
There was actually a plan B, and that was we're not going to have this shot in the movie. And plan A worked perfectly because of Kenny.
To Kenny's credit, he stayed with her until he could see that that was working. And that's a very refined skill, I think, because it wasn't just a technical exercise. He has the experience and the equipment to achieve that technically. What he had, in addition to that, was a kind of a sensitivity to fear and danger.
The first thing I started doing with Chloe was I met her mother, met her brothers. We talked for a little while. I didn't rush her in anything. Found out what she liked, what she didn't like, and so I could strike a conversation with her.
That's good. Just walking like that, even slower. Try walking slower. That's where she really is.
Then I found out what Chloe was capable of. We put her on that little beam on the ground level and started playing a game and walking back and forth. And then we started spinning, and we made a game out of it.
Oh, okay. So this is how we're gonna get you up to the roof next week, okay? Lean back for me.
They took me on a little plank of wood, and I walked on it, and they like held me up on my harness and made me a harness, and they told me how it would feel being up there. But it felt different when you were actually up there, because you got to see everything.
So for you to fall, there you go. You didn't fall, did you? Okay, so step back onto it. Okay. Okay with that? Try fall again. There you go. So that's what it's gonna be like up there, okay? Nothing happens.
We showed Chloe everything with a stunt double prior to doing anything with Chloe. I mean, we always had a stunt double standing by. The stunt double would do everything first. The stunt double was Laura Dash, and she would do everything before Chloe would do it. And she'd show her how to do it and what we were doing and make her feel comfortable. And she was like her teammate. I was more like a coach. In fact, Chloe would call me Coach Kenny. But with Chloe, I had to develop a trust. So what I did was, after we played the game and we had fun on a daily basis, I would grab her in between shots and I would take her over. There were times when I would stand her on a small step, and I'd have her close her eyes and drop backwards into my arms.
One, drop.
It is.
There. Got it.
After talking to her one day, I said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to run up in the Condor. We're going to take a ride up there. So I put her in the Condor, and I said, this is going to bounce around a lot. And I showed her how it bounced around. I took her for a ride up to the top, and I just let her look at it. And the reason was I wanted her to see that working environment before she actually went up there to do it.
In the cherry picker, we were so high up, we were next to the oak tree, and we picked acorns, and we made an acorn club with me and Melissa, and whoever we gave an acorn to, they were part of the acorn club.
The next time I took her up, we were going to hook her up. We put her in a harness, and we took her up to the roof. We were going to hook her up.
I was there that day right when we brought her up. Kenny Bates is in the basket, and we're waiting, and Kenny goes like this. He was looking right at me, and he came back down, and he goes, her lip was trembling, and then all of a sudden she started to do it, and she got more fun with it.
Hey, Richard?
Yeah?
Let's lock it.
How's the tension?
Little tension. That's good.
The overhead suspension rig for Chloe was a traveler on an endless, which means that there's an overhead cable trolley that has a line that drops down. There's a belly shiv. The traveler moves back and forth, and in between the traveler, there's a little belly in it, and there's a pulley on there. So as you let that line out, that drops down or lifts up. And that line is controlled by ground systems, by two guys on either end, and that'll lift her up and down. And the forward and back was controlled manually by two operators, which would bring her forward or back, and they all had an eye line on Chloe. That was the system that came down into a flying harness that was picked up both hips. For Chloe, the idea was to feel the tension, but to give her a little resistance, give her a few pounds of resistance so she knows it's there, but without her realizing it, she was actually walking with her own balance on the beam. I mean, if she wasn't, then it wouldn't be natural, her movements wouldn't be natural. She never had any idea that she was walking on a balance beam. As far as she was concerned, she was in a flying harness and she was just walking and being suspended.
That was different because I had to walk on the roof and it was really creepy. The first time it was creepy, but the second time it took me a few minutes to get used to it, because then I was like really cool because Kenny told me all about it.
The idea was never to put Chloe in a position where she wasn't comfortable with any of the elements, and if she wanted down, she was able to come down, and she knew she was in control, which eventually paid off because she did 90% of the work.
Hi, Mommy! Hi, Mommy!
Hi, Mommy!
Look at me, Mommy!
Look at me, Mommy!
I've never been able to ask people to do things for me that I can't do myself, even though I have a pathological fear of heights. And you know, on this dreadful day, I knew that I was going to have to get up in a condor and, cover my camouflage and my fear in order to make this happen. I didn't have to do this, but I had to do it for myself. I had to do it because I was asking her to do it. And, but there's no way I could have done what she did.
Good job, Oh, great job.
Was it fun? Was it fun? Great. Was it fun? So after lunch, we put
Andrew Douglas was a guy who we had determined was someone we wanted to work with long before we knew we were doing the Amityville Horror. He's an amazing artistic eye. We felt that he had the ability to bring this creeping dread to this house.
Andrew Douglas is extremely nice.
Be scared. You know that bit?
He tells me what to do in a nice way.
At the end, I'm totally freaking you out. Are you paying attention to me?
He's cool because he plays the guitar too.
I had this idea of starting a company to work with first-time directors, help them out. It's actually fun for me to give all the stuff I always wanted to know, to someone who's just starting out.
My background was photojournalism and photography, and then music videos into commercials, and then commercials in America. I'm not proven as a storyteller, even though the commercials I do are kind of little compressed stories.
They all say it's his first big movie, and I'm like, you can make 100 films, but it doesn't make you good with actors. You have to be a decent human being to be good with actors. You just have to relate to humans well, and he does that brilliantly.
And one more. And cut there. The thing I didn't know was the directing performance. That's what I didn't know. I knew everything else. I knew how to move the camera through the air. I knew how to tell a visual story.
And action, kill it!
What was thrilling for me is when you feel as though even that process becomes collaborative, when you can be a mirror for that actor and you can see that you can actually help them. That was thrilling. That was like pure alchemy to me, and I'd never had that experience before.
Obviously, he has a very, very heightened and keen visual sense, but what I was amazed with him most was that was secondary to his awareness of emotion. I mean, the guy was just such a study of human nature. It was amazing.
I tended to talk about Alanis Morissette with Ryan. None of that is true. I talked constantly about where we are in the film, what happens next, what we've just seen. If there are lines that are bumping me, I tended to ask him about them because I didn't feel strong enough necessarily to always challenge lines, challenge the writing. I didn't feel the confidence of it. If he agreed with them, it gave me confidence to kind of challenge or change lines. It was very often that.
Oh, Heavenly Father, Almighty God.
It's a funny scene to shoot when you get an actor of the caliber of Philip Baker Hall and who you've seen in some of your favorite films like Magnolia, and you have to say, Philip, you're a priest who is losing his faith. Yeah. Then you have to fall to the ground. Yeah. Then you have to roll around on the ground, flicking at your face as if there are flies. This was just a scary, scary moment.
And action.
That's a very game performance, isn't it, for a man in his, later years.
One more. And cut there.
Get it? Cutting.
It was the first question that Toby Jaffe asked me when I met him before I was invited to do the films. He said, if you do this film, Andrew, then make sure that you find the source of evil. And I just thought that was such a, that's a kind of one-off thing to say. I'll not hear that many times in my life. And certainly, from a writing point of view, I think that Scott Kozar was interested in tracking that idea beyond the original Amityville.
I'm Jennifer Williams. We're now in our art department, and I'm going to show you briefly how we start the process of design with our reference and how we go to our boards and how we actually translate that into a design. So we have here the ideas that we came up with for our red room, which is the follow-through from our basement. And so this was some of the reference that we came up with for the idea of what our tunnels and our red room would look like.
What do you do? Is that pretty strong stuff to hold that?
Well, like I say, that's what I say. It's got enough tension, but I don't want to.
This is an autopsy laboratory, Victorian, where we've got a mass of tables. So it started off with having slabs where all the tortures would take place.
Seems like that audition was only yesterday.
And so this is the sort of transition. This is one of our cells with one of our torture characters. In our script, we have a lot of medieval torture. And so this was some of the early research that we discovered. Some very nasty things go on. But man's inhumanity to man.
And Jay. I think they moved a little faster.
The scariest moments are moments that involve, human horror. Not supernatural horror, but the horror that human beings are capable of.
This movie, even if it weren't based on a true story, works on so many levels. And I think that, the fact that you're watching and you're thinking, wow, this actually did happen, is something that really heightens the the experience, I think, for the moviegoer.
The afterlife, I think a lot of people wonder about it.
The film is a huge success. It seems to have legs, and it seems to have something that, you know, other horror films don't necessarily have.
There's something that makes the haunted house genres endure, and endure with audiences, and I'll be interested to see how the haunted house genre is reinvented years from now, you know?
What was peculiar about the scene that we all noticed was that all of the bodies were found in virtually the same position, face down in the bed, arms above their heads.
I can't think of how we can explain this away, how he did these 6 murders without any one of them hearing these shots and reacting to the shots.
When I heard the details and I finally knew the whole story, it just helped me to understand that big, huge puzzle of how evil does personify itself.
6 members of the family were found last night in bed, shot, and killed.
The fact that he was able to shoot all 6 of them and no one going to the aid of anyone else, and no one of those 6 hearing that shot and trying to get away, that doesn't add up at all.
The theory was that some of these ghosts of the Indians who were buried there had arisen from the dead and held them down, or were accomplices in some way.
I know the house made him do it. I'm positive of that.
I don't believe there were any ghosts in that house. I don't think there ever were. I know there's not any there now.
Nothing else can do that other than the intelligence of something inhuman.
I'm Ken Greguski. I'm the former chief of police at Amityville Police Department.
My name's Dr. Howard Edelman. I became the deputy chief medical examiner in Suffolk County.
My name is Lorraine Warren, and along with my husband Ed, I have been involved in the research and study of supernatural and preternatural phenomena for well over 50 years. The one case that stands out in my mind as one of the most interesting and probably the most bizarre is a home in Amityville, Long Island, where Ronald DeFeo killed every member of his family.
I was on call for homicide cases that evening, and I got a call from the medical examiner's office, so I took off to this house in Amityville.
It was approximately 6:40 in the evening on November the 13th, 1974. I received a radio call to respond to Ocean Avenue for possible murders.
When I walked in the house, I met all of the detectives, and we laid out the plan of how we were going to investigate these murders.
When I got to the house, I seen Ronald DeFeo Jr. standing outside with a few of his friends, and I asked him what happened, and he said his mother and father were killed. And I checked the upstairs bedrooms, and I found Mr. and Mrs. DeFeo laying face down in their beds. Both had been shot in the back. I checked the second bedroom and found out that Ronald's 2 younger brothers, both laying in their beds, face down, had been shot in the back. And at that time, Ronald DeFeo said to me that he also has 2 sisters. I went back up to the second floor and found in another small bedroom the younger sister. She had been shot in the head. And I left that room and I went up to a third floor where there was another 2 bedrooms. And in one of those bedrooms I found the older sister, and she had been shot in the head. Ronnie, at that point, when I came back down, and it was just he and I in the kitchen, he said he couldn't imagine who may have done this or why it was done. At the time, he didn't seem too upset about the whole thing to me. Now, I don't know if he had been drinking or if he was possibly on drugs or anything else, but he seemed to be pretty mild and pretty calm about the whole situation. He didn't seem that distraught like anybody you would normally think would be.
Since each of the murders was in a separate bedroom, we had to regard each bedroom as a separate homicide scene. After we had explored each of the rooms, one at a time, we were amazed that all of the bodies were found face down with their arms extended. We knew that they were all in this position at the time they were shot because the entrance and exit holes of the bullets matched with where they left the body and entered the mattresses. It almost had the appearance that they were being held at bay or told to be in a certain position at that time. And this led to a lot of armchair detective work, not only on our part, but conspiracy theorists later on, when I testified that I didn't think that he acted alone.
They come running into the bar and said that mother and father are shot.
I've been to a lot of crime scenes. I've never seen anything like this.
I just can't understand how he could do this on his own, having all these people laying in a face-down position, except for the fact that the night of the murders, we had a terrible storm and there was a lot of lightning and thunder, so that may have covered the shots.
Even if they were sleeping, the report of the weapon that was used is supposed to be so loud that it would have, so to speak, almost awakened the dead.
Is that the murder weapon, sir?
Yes. 35 caliber rifles, a loud firearm. They don't make silencers for rifles like this. And yet nobody heard a single shot.
Evil can personify itself in any way it sees fit. It can block out sound. It can influence us. It can reach us on levels that we are not even aware of. I believe the origin of evil there has to do with the grounds itself. That is what I feel, because there was another home there before that home was ever built. That home was moved away because it was said to have some sort of paranormal activity occurring in it, and yet nothing is occurring where it is now.
Supposedly, at least according to the book, this had been on the site of an old Indian burial ground, and people have surmised that some of the ghosts of these deceased Indians came out and played a part in the massacre that occurred there.
I don't believe in evil spirits or the fact that some people say that when there's an evil spirit around, it will contain sounds and everything else in one particular area. I'm not a believer. I can't believe that. I just can't see that happening. You have to be scientific about this. I mean, there's a loud noise, you're going to hear a loud noise.
How could that whole family be murdered, going from one floor to another in that house? Nobody is waking up. No neighbor is hearing a high-powered rifle. And the houses are so close to each other.
To this day, as far as I know, none of those people were drugged. So why someone wasn't able to get out of that house, it's beyond belief.
We did extensive toxicology, not only on the blood and urine, but on all of the organs that we removed. and it turned up 0, that there wasn't anything in their body. So they were cold sober at the time they were murdered.
I would have assumed that he did have an accomplice, but that's never been proven, and you know, we haven't found any evidence to indicate that.
What a phenomenal master plan by the demonic. When I walked into that home, I knew that I was dealing with a tremendously powerful evil force. Evil that doesn't always personify itself in a home like that. So I took a relic, was only a second-class relic of Padre Pio, tight in my hand, and asked for his guidance with discernment in this home. As I walked throughout the house with my husband, Ed, I remember walking into the front room, and in that room I could see what appeared to me to look like bodies all wrapped, all in a line. And I thought, oh my God, how awful, how awful, how awful. And I remember holding that relic tight in my hand and just saying a little prayer to myself. And then they asked if I would go on to the second floor. So I started to go up the stairs. It was frightening. It was intimidating. I said, I hope this is as close to hell as I'll ever get. I went into Missy's room, and I'm looking at furniture there. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that some of that furniture belonged to the DeFeo family. And I thought, oh my God, just a frightening feeling, like you're looking over your shoulder. It felt like whatever was there was just totally taking over my mind, and so that it was hindering what I was there to do, which was to discern and investigate. I left that room and went across the hall. I stood there looking at that mirrored tile wall, and I sat on the bed. I sat on the bed where Mr. and Mrs. DeFeo were shot to death. I realized I was in a home that was kind of like the ultimate in the personification of evil. Something that would affect you on your weakest, most vulnerable level. Anybody, wouldn't matter who you were. And it was a battle to keep your peace in that home, because what was there could break you down so easily. So easily you could be broke down in that house. Then Ed said to me, will you walk down in the basement? Will you, honey? Will you go down into the basement area with me? And when I went down there, I realized that Ronnie DeFeo was involved in some very evil stuff.
I was in the basement of that house, and I don't remember seeing any big red rooms or anything else. I know there was a little storage closet under the staircase, but other than that, the basement wouldn't be any more irregular than most normal basements.
I can't blame Ronald DeFeo. I can't blame him, because I feel that he was vulnerable in some way. Was it drugs? Was it alcohol? Was it a combination of both? Was it his whole state of mind? Was it his relationship with his father? It was a combination of everything that makes you vulnerable. And at that time, you can be used. He was used. Maybe he wasn't all to blame.
I was told afterwards from the investigation that the oldest son who did the murders had tried to extort money from his father in a previous episode and had a loaded gun and put the gun to his father's head to try and coerce him to give him some money. The father refused, and Ronald Jr. pulled the trigger. The gun did not go off, and his father found religion, which is understandable.
The Amityville house was the most haunted house we were ever in.
I was never in that house when the seances were being held and where these, what do they call them, parapsychics came in to check for evil spirits and everything else. There's another thing I don't believe in, not wholeheartedly anyway.
Well, my gut reaction to the idea of ghosts and houses being haunted is that I just don't believe that there are such things as haunted houses and ghosts. I keep saying that I have been more intimate with the family, having performed all of the autopsies, and I have never been spooked.
What caused the family to be murdered? What caused another family to flee?
The only one who has the answer to the mystery is Ronnie DeFeo. Whether or not he'll ever come clean and give us the whole story, who's to say? He may, he may not. We'll never know.
The best protection that the devil has is a skeptical public.
Oh my God, oh my God! Chelsea, don't move! Just sit down! Got that.
Got it?
That's great. You want to do one more and over?
Hi, Mommy. Look at me, Mommy. Look at me, Mommy. And action. Go. Hold the ladder. Hold that ladder, guys. Yeah, I know they did. All right. Which way do they go?
She's going that way!
Well, I can't go that way.
That way.
And got it.
Hey, sweetie. Here we go.
Quiet.
You and me.
Quiet, please.
You're so brave. You're my hero. I won't let you fall. I'm strong.
Okay, a little left.
I'd never let you fall.
All right, ready and grab. Better grab. You ready and grab. Drop.
That was it.
All right, cut.
I didn't move myself on it.
All right.
You little sneaky, tricky.
I did them.
Exactly.
So we're on the technical. We're on stage. Feeling, Mark. All right, Mark, it's on you.
I'm set. Cat, I got it.
Good.
Huh? Yeah? You okay, sweetie? Yeah? Nice work.
set. We have speed and dolly.
Off battery.
And cut. Thank you, John.
See light through it. See light coming through the hole. Save the wrench. John, save the wrench.
No. Keep it up. Turn out the light. Turn out the light. So keep going.
Ready and climb. Save it all. Save it.
Okay.
Oh, that was close!
Lower, everybody, lower. Ready and action. Come on, Jimbo. Hi, Mom. All right, get it.
Hey, fucker.
Speak for yourself.
All right. Was it cold?
It was a freezing pit. Come on, let's go over to the warm pit.
No. How was it?
Cold.
So let the stripes happen on your face. So you're almost doing that. So the camera can see the stripes. Is that working better, Flo?
Yep.
Ready and
George! George, I need to talk to you. God damn it. What are you doing?
Whoosh. Good. And action. And good.
I think I got it ish. I straightened up halfway through.
You okay? Ready and action. Kill it.
Instinct Sunday.
Serge, you'd have to go a little closer to it.
All right, so
Her hair's all pinned up.
I understand.
Yeah.
Motor on, Mike. You want bubbles? We see them on the edge. Bubbles. A little bit of bubbles, Mike. Okay, ready. And push her. Then go all the way. Kill it.
Now you should. That's as far as you can go. She can pull her back towards that. Pull her away from the motor so we can push her into that mark.
Hold that mark.
up. Okay.
Now bring her back in.
Now push her in and
Hold that mark.
kill it.
That's
Okay.
awesome. I'm stuck.
That's the shot.
But she's great.
So now.
But I'm stuck. But I'm stuck.
That's great. So you got a mark?
Alright, so that's
Really
seems like
well,
what
grab my ass out here, like somewhere out there.
Okay.
This one stays out of the water.
Yeah.
That's good.
Cool.
It's good for you then.
Yeah.
You better think you'll.
Yeah.
If you did go out with her,
Hold still, stick. Still, and when I pull you down, you're gonna grab it. Ready, and down.
now get it in reverse. Rolling, reverse, suck it out. Get rid of that hair. Pull it out of there. Get it out. Come on. Grab the tip of it. And background, Tico.
5 of the victims were found shot, face down on their beds. The 6th was found in a closet.
More out of the door, Tico.
Hold on a second, Rich. Open up your pack a little bit, fellas. Just everybody make a bit more space.
Action.
Okay.
At first we thought they might have been drugged because no one seemed to stir in their sleep. Strange.
And cut that. Good job, Rich.
Cut. Keep it going, background. Ready, and background, and action.
None of it made a hell of a lot of sense. All but one of the victims were found in identical sleeping positions. You'd think some of them would have defensive wounds after they heard the shots in the house, but none were found.
Cut that. Good job.
Got it. Save the ring. Good. Mark it.
G-mark.
The body's gonna come first, Pete.
I got
And
you.
background, body, and action.
I've been to a lot of crime scenes. I've never seen anything like this. I've been to a lot of crime scenes. I've never seen anything like this. I've been to a lot of crime scenes. I've never seen anything like this.
Got it?
Body cut.
Okay, background and body 1.
Go, Albert.
Body 2 out the door. Body 3.
Go, Travis, go.
All right, clear, guys. Let body 3 get in there. Okay. And close the door. Close the hatch. All right, close that. Oh, we got to work that part out. So this time on action, you have the first line, Chloe, and you're looking in the room. Ready, and act.
Mommy! Chelsea! I'm down here, Mommy!
Honey, what are you doing down here? We gotta go.
I want to show me something.
I loved speaking over top of each other. Did you?
Or how are you going to pump it?
I had to do it the way we did it that I'm talking about.
You got to rotate it that way.
Get into a shoot.
Oh, thank you, Nando.
Ready, buddy? Yeah, babe. No, that worked. You like lunch? We're in that room. Do a real one. More uniform. We don't like it. I like to play the guy with one.
Did you put your little I threw it in my pocket. Okay.
Mark it. Marker. Ready, and action. Try it again. Still rolling.
Can we start a little bit further?
Sure.
This is changing and then it was...
There we go. Okay, ready, and action. It's too late.
I think it's be a little...
Try it again. I'm just going to say it verbally. Ready. Hold on. Oh, whoa. Second, you're marking. Okay. And action. Right.
I think she misses her daddy.
My daughter.
Don't run. I just want to talk.
Door. So the door didn't go all the way. We'll work that out.
Not right.
Cut.